Yeah, that's quick. Welcome to Older Militarist Radio TV and our live on Catholics. You know what we do is all for free and for love of Jesus Christ and for our Holy Mother, the Church. And we'll defend our Holy Mother, the Church. Today we're going to be talking about another convert to the Catholic faith. And why Twitter is promoting this guy and who he is, what he does, and what he thinks. Welcome, Brother Alexis.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on Ordo Militaris Radio TV. Now, if you listen carefully to the words AJ says at the beginning of every show, they are well chosen and for a purpose. We are both cradle Catholics, and we often talk about many different issues from a Catholic point of view. But one of our themes of study are these individuals who have in their biographies that they were not born or raised Catholic, and then they converted recently, and then they go and start an apostolate teaching the Catholic faith, apparently without any mandate from any Catholic bishop, and start telling Catholics what to believe and what not to believe. And as cradle Catholics, we find this offensive and objectionable. And so we're going to talk today about Schaetzel, a person I've never heard of before 2 or 3 days ago, and only because Twitter is throwing his tweets out to Catholics to make them look at them. So let's start with Schaetzel, and since Ordo Militaris Catholicus is a security initiative, we've done a not too deep background check on him just to learn who he is and where he's from. So when was he born? Where is he from, AJ? Not the day of his birth for privacy reasons. What year is he born?
Yeah. Let's see.
And he's quite, I think he's.
Yeah, so.
Is it 8?
So be 19. He was born in 1969.
Okay, 1969. And what state, as far as we know?
Missouri.
Okay, and so in what religion was he born? I should say, what religion did he join as a baby, because the way his parents raised him?
He was baptized. He was first raised as American Baptist. Then he was finally baptized as a Lutheran. And then he became an Anglican. And then
wasn't he evangelical for a while?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's been through several religions, like another famous talking head that we might do a program on shortly, Mother Miriam, who's a convert from Judaism. Religious travelers. I've been through several religions before they get to Catholicism, which is already quite unusual. Usually a person, rarely makes a decision in religion. If he does, it's only one time before he actually does it. But if you're not familiar with the religious scene in the United States, we have 36,000 different Christian churches, and they're all considered legal religions. And among non-Catholics who are not from the tradition of the Orthodox, who come from Protestants or Anglican backgrounds, they pretty much shop around religions. It's basically they'll join any nice church in town that has a good choir and a conservative pastor or some kind of pastor that appeals to them, whether it's their race or ethnicity or something like that. And so changing from religion to religion isn't a big decision for these people. I don't think it's any serve God better really in one than another. They do it for personal reasons, which aren't always theological or religious ones. Sometimes it's the person they marry and sometimes not. So what do we know about his life history?
So his father's side is Swedish and Swiss. Came to America about 1840 and finished arriving at 1929. His mother's side, British and Irish, started out as the colonists in America. They have been here about 400 years.
Okay. Does he tell us the name of his mother's family?
No.
No, and we weren't able to find that. So, what is his profession in life? Do we know where school he went to?
We don't know the school, but he's respirator therapist.
Respiratory therapist.
Yep.
Okay, and he got a license in the spring of 2020. So
Yep.
he's probably working with COVID patients during the pandemic. I'll call it that because we will put this on YouTube. And so that doesn't, well, maybe he does have a medical degree, that does require some training, but doesn't appear that he's a registered nurse or an MD.
Mm.
And what does he call himself on his blog? We'll go to his blog page now, but this is what he says about himself for those who want to know more about him.
He says, I am a traditional Catholic layman. When I say layman, that means I'm not ordained as a priest or deacon. I'm just a regular Catholic. When I say traditional, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that the way a convert should really begin?
No.
Who just say he's traditional? I mean, what's the tradition in his personal life? Is it being Catholic?
No. No.
Obviously not. So this is the same thing that Matt family does, who traces its ancestry from apparently a Frankish Jew. They claim they're traditional Catholic. They haven't been Catholics like your family and your family on your father's side, my family on both sides, going back maybe 2,000 years or back to the early preaching. They've been Catholic only in recent generations. So these groups that take the word traditional Catholic and yet haven't been Catholic in their lineages for centuries, I don't personally, I feel that that's not honest. There's no rule about it, but that's not honest. That's not who you are. That's who you've become. And it's kind of like saying someone who was born in the Sahara Desert saying, I'm a professional Atlantic swimmer. Well, did you grow up at the beach? No, you only started swimming when you were in college. Okay, yeah. Okay, you are a swimmer and you have swum in the Atlantic, but you really can't say that's your tradition. Your tradition is is riding camels. That what was handed down to you. That's what tradition means. Handed down. What was handed down to you? So you measure when you say I'm traditional Catholic, you should only say that if you were born in a Catholic family.
So he says he believes that everything that is taught in the Catechism of Trent, Baltimore Catechism, and the big giant green catechism given to us by John Paul II.
Okay, so that's what he believes. He doesn't say he believes in the magisterium.
And what makes me traditional is both my adherence to the Catholic faith, as always taught throughout history, if my insistence on attending traditional forms of Catholic worship. For me, that includes divine worship and the traditional Latin Mass.
Okay, so I'm going to pause right one thing here. A Catholic would never say, I believe what I find in catechisms. A Catholic will always say, I believe what the church teaches, what the magisterium teaches. Why? Because we're not a religion of a book.
Mm-mm.
That's a Protestant notion, or an Islamic notion, or a Jewish notion. Catholics don't say, I believe in the Bible. They don't say, I believe in the catechism. I believe the Catholic faith, which transcends any kind of books. That doesn't mean you can't express it well in one book. The Roman Catechism, the Catechism of the Council of Trent, is an excellent catechism. Its real name is the Roman Catechism, okay? And but it doesn't contain everything we believe in it. And this is, you can immediately see he's a convert because he's talking and thinking the way a Protestant approaches the faith, not as a Catholic, okay? And if he go ahead, AJ.
Okay, so this is from Cardinal Gibbons and Cardinal Ireland. We found out in the book by Wim Hof. He uses the actual phrase by Cardinal Gibbons that members from other parts of the world are supposed to use. He's a member of the U.S. Catholic Church.
Oh, he says that.
Mm.
Okay, so and this goes down to what he says later on. Doesn't he say, he says in his biography, later on, we'll bring it up now. My religion is my politics, and my politics is my religion. I make no distinction. Now, would any Catholic say that?
Mm-mm.
And why? Don't we make a distinction in the Catholic Church between politics and
Yeah, our
yeah,
faith is supposed to guide it, not supposed to be politics. I mean, unless you want to restore the Catholic monarchy.
yeah, and he's not a member of the monarchy party. He's a member of the American Solidarity Party. We'll get to that. So this is just a profound misunderstanding of the Catholic faith. First of all, Christ says, "My kingdom is not of this world." And we're not talking out of our mouths here, because AJ is the founder of the Catholic Party of America, and I'm the founder of an Italian political party, of which I'm no longer a member. But nevertheless, we are Catholics who try to be active in politics. But we recognize there's a difference between what you find in the Catechism and what's on your party program.
Mm-hmm.
They're two different things. You don't have statements of creed in your party program, okay? Even though everything should be inspired by what you believe. And if you have not yet understood that, should you be teaching? No, you shouldn't. I mean, it's like a 101 lesson. So continue, AJ.
So, oh boy, here we go. So he goes on to, however, after some time studying the Hebrew roots of the Christian faith and reading the writings of the early church fathers, I came to the conclusion the early church was a lot more Catholic than I was comfortable with. So my wife and I left evangelicalism and spent some time as Anglicans before joining the Catholic Church in 2000. It was divine worship, rite of Book of Common Prayer within Anglicanism that led us to become Catholic. And it is the only liturgical form of Catholicism that I truly feel at home with. This is
Let's
what
stop. Let's stop right there. Could a Catholic say that, AJ?
no.
It seems to me that he's confusing Anglicanism with Catholicism. I mean, he knows his church history, it seems from his writings. How could you not know that the Book of Common Prayer was written by heretics and apostates? And it is only allowed the ordinary of Anglicans to assist their conversion. They're not required to celebrate that as the exclusive liturgy. And if they said they would never celebrate the Roman Rite, they probably wouldn't even be allowed into the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
To say you don't feel comfortable with the actual Catholic liturgy, let's say even the Latin liturgy or the ancient Roman Rite, or that you're not comfortable with any of the Byzantine rites of the Catholic faith, what religion are you?
Mm-hmm.
Especially since he seems to think that practicing your faith means going to mass. And is that correct?
That's just part of it.
What happens if you make that the totality of it?
Yeah, almost becomes your God.
Yeah, it's just Phariseeism. It's just hypocrisy. Continue, AJ.
That is why he and his family are members of the personal ordinate of the Chair of St. Peter.
Which is the
That,
groups set up
yeah,
by Pope
yeah.
Benedict for the Anglicans.
We practice the Catholic faith according to divine worship. If you would like to learn more about divine worship and other devotions of the English Catholic patrimony, I suggest you get a copy of St. Gregory's Prayer Book, which I was privileged to sit on the editorial board to help create.
Oh my goodness. So, I am not confident that this guy could put together a prayer book or even edit one. He misses some of the most fundamental aspects of to say we practice our Catholic faith in divine worship. That's you know, there's more to Catholic faith than the worship of God. Okay. The Catholic faith consists in the worship and service of God. That's true. It consists solely in the worship of God in heaven, but on earth there's still some service. Even the angels and saints have some service to God. Okay, that's what the whole corporal and spiritual works of mercy are, which take place outside of the church. I mean, they can take place during the liturgy too, but they also take place outside of the church. So it is a bizarre statement that goes back to what he says. My religion is my politics, and my politics is my religion. So what is he? There's no distinction between them in my mind. That's what he says. Well, that's not Catholic. And if that was true, then his real religion is solidarity and subsidiarity, because he says there's no distinction. So is solidarity a Catholic teaching? Where does that term come from?
The USSR.
Yeah, or the Fabian Society in England. It's socialism, okay? And subsidiarity, there's a typo on his blog page, he hasn't seen that. So subsidiarity is a principle in politics. Leo the 13th says it's basically said it's the Catholic position, and there's nothing wrong with that. But he says he's a member of the American Solidarity Party, and let's go to their website and discuss what their platform is. AJ, why don't you read some things there? Find out what type of party is this.
All right. Let me make sure I'm right on the deal here. Okay, here we go. Okay. I'm just going to read their little bitty piece here. For policies, this means we build an economy centered on the needs of healthy families and neighborhoods, not big corporations or faraway bureaucracy. I think they misspelled far away bureaucracies. It means we reform zoning, land use, infrastructure, immigration, voting rights, and the police. It means we end the death penalty.
Ending the death penalty, is that Catholic teaching?
No, death penalty is Catholic teaching.
That's right. It's actually divine teaching. It's the teaching of God. No one, not even the church, can change. So this party is not a Christian party.
They want to end euthanasia, torture, abortion, and forever wars.
So they're pacifists.
Yep.
They don't want any killing of any kind. So a man breaks into your house, rapes your wife, you have a gun, you can't kill him. That would be wrong.
Yep.
Yeah. And pacifism, as we did a show, I think, on pacifism, is a Marxist principle to break down law and order in society. And so that Marxist revolutionaries who commit heinous crimes cannot be put to death, and the state has to support them. That's the whole purpose of pacifism. It's to disarm Christians, especially. It seems like Christianity, but it's not Christianity. And he ends by saying, to learn more, read my essay, I'm a Catholic integralist. So he has an essay on that. He also wrote an essay for Gab, which is unusual because Gab is very anti-Catholic. Gab, for example, suspended our orders account. And we didn't do much other than I think we did one video on Gab and the founder of Gab, because he says he wants to unite the left and the right. Well, you can't do that unless you abandon truth, since one is Marxist and one's the destruction of the other. Uniting them would be saying uniting Islam and Catholicism. What would you end up with? You'd probably end up says we should be destroyed. So maybe he got upset by that. So, but this guy actually wrote an article for Gab. And what was the title of this article?
Against the modern Judaizers.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, every kind under the sun. There is that's so anti-Catholic, it tries to go back to the Old Testament. It started with naming your children with Old Testament names rather than New Testament saints, to just do away totally with the communion of the saints. Then it moved on to doing things like the Pentecostals, they celebrate on Saturday rather than Sunday. Doing what like the Pilgrims did, they did away with Easter and Christmas. And some of them go so far as celebrating Hanukkah and Passover and all these kind of things. So that's what his article's about. But let's take a look at it. First, my question is, Shane Schaetzel, as far as we know, is he Jewish? Why is he writing on this topic?
I don't know if he's Jewish.
Yeah, okay. So there's no way. Schaetzel is a Swiss-German name. We don't know if he's Jewish or not. We have no information on that. But maybe he ran into these Protestants and he's arguing against it. What are some strange things in this article that a Catholic would?
This part. Circumcision is an initiation ritual into the Old Covenant law of Moses. A man cannot be a practitioner of ancient Jewish religion or modern Judaism unless he is first circumcised. It is the first of many steps along this path. It does not end with circumcision. It never does. Circumcision is just the first step, but follows is keeping the kosher laws, worshiping on Saturday, observing the Mosaic feast, Passover, Pentecost, trumpets, atonement, and booths, as well as the Maccabean feast day of Hanukkah. In other words, circumcision is an initiation ceremony into a whole way of life, a Jewish way of life.
Okay, so circumcision as a surgical act doesn't make you a Jew. Nearly all boys in the U.S. used to be circumcised just for hygienic reasons. It doesn't make them Jews, but he seems to think that ancient Judaism and modern Judaism are both equally religions. That's just not true. Even if you ask a devout, truly believing Jew, he's going to say, no, there's only one Judaism, and that's the kind you find in the Old Testament. Conservative Judaism, Reformed Judaism, Sabbatean Judaism, these aren't Judaisms. They're just some strange new thing that doesn't follow the Old Testament at all. So it's not really a religion, and that's something that shows he doesn't really know what modern Judaism is. Modern Judaism is more like a claim to be a Jew. It is a Jew, because most modern Jews are not Jews. You go back, to be a Jew, you have to have all your grandparents, great-grandparents, go all the way back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You can't go halfway back, and most of them have some Gentile in one of their lineages or not. And then they don't observe the laws. And if you don't observe the law, it says in the Old Testament, you're cut off from God's people. So you shouldn't call yourself a Jew, though they use the word Jew either in an ethnic sense, a genetic sense, or religious sense, and they play games with this term in different ways. So when someone says I'm Jewish, you have to ask them, what do you mean by that? Because it doesn't mean one thing. So I took note of what he says about Catholicism. What does he say the word Catholic means?
So the ancient Greeks had a word for such universalism. It was an adjective called katholikos, and it translates to universal, meaning not tied to any particular race, ethnicity, or culture. It is where we get the English word Catholic.
Okay, so I object to this because the Greek word Catholic isn't universalism. Universalism has a very specific sense. It is the movement in Protestant Christianity to unite all religions under the worship of one God, regardless of creed. That's not what the word Catholic meant. Catholic as an adjective means this is a follower of Christ who believes what followers of Christ believe in all places. He is the kind you find everywhere. That's what the word Catholic meant. He's the one where no matter if you go to Rome or Jerusalem or Constantinople or Carthage or London or Paris, you're going to find one of this kind. Doesn't mean all the people who claim to be Christian are like this, but wherever you go in the world, you're going to find one of this kind. That's what the word Catholic means. It has nothing to do with universalism. No, the Armenian church is only for Armenians. They call themselves Catholics. The Russian church is only for Russians, and they call themselves Catholics. Okay, it has to do with morals, a unity of morals and doctrine. Okay, it doesn't prevent a church from being ethnic. It allows it, actually. So he doesn't understand this term correctly.
In this next area, enculturation describes the process of Christianity absorbing cultures as it advanced from place to place in the ancient world. The idea behind it was based on the events recorded in Acts 15. Rather than steamrolling over Gentile cultures with religious precepts that demand the culture to adapt to it, which is exactly what the Pharisees did, does it too. Christianity absorbs a culture and baptizes it, so to speak, preserving what is good and wholesome, or at least harmless, about that culture, and while eliminating those things that are idolatrous or immoral. This is how Europe was made. It is also how Russia was made. It is also how the Middle Eastern and North African Christian cultures were made before they were steamrolled by Islam.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I'm a cultural anthropologist and I object to this. Okay. He first of all he doesn't understand the word enculturation was invented by Marxists. Okay, to make an excuse for attacking and deconstructing Western Christian civilization. It's a bad term. I used it at college. I didn't know it was bad, so people can use it not knowing it's a bad term. The church doesn't absorb cultures. Cultures absorb Christian values. Okay. So the correct thing is that the church didn't absorb the English or French or German or Spanish or Portuguese or Italian cultures. They absorbed the Christian values because culture is not religion. Okay. Culture is everything that is handed down in the society and is commonly agreed on the way of life. It's far vaster than religion. Okay. But it's only really material, social, and contextual. Okay. So it's wrong to say the church absorbed, because if the church absorbed French culture, that means if you went to Australia, you would find French culture in your parish. You're not going to find French culture in your parish in Australia unless it was built by French people. Okay, it doesn't absorb. It's the other way around. The cultures absorb the Christian morality, value systems, belief, and faith, and restructure themselves and purify themselves. And this is what we should all be doing. We should be purifying the culture we live in by our Christian faith. How do we do that? By putting a statue of Our Lady in front of your house, you are purifying the pagan Masonic culture of the country you're living in. Because you're saying she should be out there for everyone to see. In some countries, it's not even legal. Legal, it should be done. And go to, for example, Malta, which was ruled by the Knights of Malta for centuries. You can find in almost every corner in the downtown, high up on the building, the second, third floor, a statue of Our Lady or some saint, because the images, sacred images, should be out in public because our faith should imbue all of our society and stuff. So he gets it upside down wrong, although I think he's trying to explain it correctly. However, he makes one statement that just jumps out at me. This is how Europe was made. It's also how Russia was made. What's wrong with that statement, AJ?
it's not how either were made.
Yeah, and Russia is part of Europe, right? Okay, is Russia not part? If he had said it's also how the Soviet Union was made or the Russian Empire, he didn't say Russian Empire, he said Russia. So Russia is part of Europe. If you deny that, you're insulting the Russians, but you also it's just something you learn in high school or even middle school. But this gave me the impression that he might have some particular views about Vladimir Putin. So what did you find, AJ?
2 tweets.
Okay.
And I screenshotted them with the link and everything so y'all can see where I found this thing. He says, I'm still no fan of Putin, but I have to say he's a much better Orthodox Christian than Biden is a Catholic.
Okay, AJ, do you think that statement is outrageously off track?
Mm-hmm.
What has Putin done that Biden hasn't done that's anti-Christian?
Let's see here. There's abortion in Russia, abortion here. Both are abortion presidents. Biden has not bombed churches yet.
Has Biden assassinated anyone with with little pills of nuclear isotopes by sticking them in the leg with an umbrella?
No.
Has he poisoned people's teacups? Did he blow up an entire apartment building in the capital as an excuse to start a war against the Islamic minority in his country?
No.
Has he invaded almost every neighbor of his country?
No.
And has he killed like 100,000 Ukrainian Christians in a war? You know, a lot of people praise Trump for not starting wars, but Biden has not started a war. He ended the war in Afghanistan and he got out. So you'd have to pretty much say he's a peaceful man. And you might have objections because I know there's some people out there that just suck up Russian propaganda like Kool-Aid. But helping a Christian nation defend itself once attacked is not starting a war. It's an act of peace. It's called peacemaking because it's restoring justice, which is peace. So that's a really outrageous statement. What does he think Russian Orthodoxy is? I mean, doesn't he think it's, you know, he comes from a party that says they want to get rid of endless war, and he just says a man who starts wars is better than a man who doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What else did he say of Putin?
While I'm no fan of Putin or Russia, I hope Ukraine loses this war, and quickly. The violence must end, and Western globalists must learn they cannot keep propping up a little dictator like Zelensky.
So is Zelensky a dictator or is he elected official?
Elected.
And was he elected by just chancery in the voting or overwhelming majority?
Overwhelming majority.
And did the people, and what's his approval rating among Ukrainians?
About 90%.
Yeah. Now, is he the perfect guy?
No.
Does he assassinate his enemies?
No. No.
Does he rob all the banks and businesses for his family?
Nope.
So does he decree laws in his own name? Has he abolished his legislature?
No.
Does he persecute people who criticize him in public?
No.
No. So, you know, I was a critic of Zelensky, and I got into the country without any problem, founded a nonprofit there, and we did a lot of good work, and we're still doing good work there. And, you know, it's not a dictatorship at all. It's one of the most non-dictatorships. There's a lot more. Is Biden running a dictatorship?
Not really.
Is Putin running a dictatorship?
Yeah.
Yeah. Biden seems like he wants to run a dictatorship sometimes, you know, the things he says are like, you know, if you disagree with me, remember I have fighter jets and nuclear bombs. So, you know, he says crazy things. So it's just, you know, but the saying, I hope Ukraine ends this war by surrendering or something like that or being defeated. I mean, that's like saying, I can't sleep at night because the wife of my neighbor is constantly being raped by a criminal, and I wish she'd just shut up and take it so I can sleep. Now, is that a Christian mentality?
No.
Twisted, perverse, and ideologically insane positions you could have in regard to a Christian nation that was unjustly attacked. Even Prigozhin admits they were unjustly attacked.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so that's who is Shane Schaetzel. He calls himself a Catholic apologist, a Catholic integralist, a Catholic traditionalist. Is this guy going to give you a wholesome, authentic product?
No.
Where do you think his loyalties really lie, whether he knows it or not?
Russia, Putin, Judas.
I get the impression he's a Fabian socialist.
Yeah.
A lot of Fabian socialists out of St. Louis, a lot of tradies are into that, a lot of English are into that. Whole idea of American Solidarity Party sounds like a G.K. Chesterton socialist kind of thing. I'll tell you, I have no expertise that academic could claim expertise. I am a cradle Catholic and I've read a lot of Catholic books in my life. But I wouldn't recommend to any parent that you would read his material or let your kids read it, because this guy doesn't yet know what Catholicism is. He has a very shallow, mistaken, erroneous notion about key concepts in our religion. And he's violating the rule of St. Paul. Now, what's the rule of St. Paul on converts?
That they should stay quiet for about 10 years, do a lot of prayer, be like a monk for about 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Newman went a little further. He was at about 20 years.
Mm-hmm. And even Newman had some objectionable opinions. He was not in favor of papal infallibility, for example. Mm-hmm. And he had a relationship with a fellow religious that went way beyond normal.
Mm-hmm.
So much so that he wanted to be buried in the same hole in the ground as his brother in religion. So this is just another example of a layman who's started his own apostolate. He says the purpose of it is to sell his books and to support himself financially. He makes big, strong claims about his identity, and yet he shows a shallow knowledge of Catholicism. And the other day I saw him say something that I thought was almost laughable. He says, if the Vatican ever approves women deacons or women priests, I'm going to draw the line there. I'm never going to accept that, no matter if they call me a heretic. Well, no Catholic would say that, because that implies that you don't believe that Christ said, the gates of hell shall not prevail against my church.
Mm-hmm.
Thou Peter, and upon this rock I shall build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against her. It's almost as if he never read that passage of the Bible, or doesn't yet believe in that doctrine. And if you don't believe in that doctrine, are you a Catholic?
No.
You don't even have the Catholic faith. If he doesn't believe in that doctrine, he has not, his baptism, his reconciliation to the Catholic Church is null and void, because he doesn't have the Catholic faith.
Mm-hmm.
So when he says Catholic, the gut feeling I get every time he uses the word Catholic, what he means is Anglican,
Mm-hmm.
conservative Christian. And he thinks that in the Catholic Church, you can believe whatever you want. That's what he calls it, universalism. That's not what Catholicism's about. The Catholicism is not a big tent political party. It's not what it is. It might seem that way, but that's not what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And if any Catholic says he doesn't believe everything the church teaches, he's not Catholic. He's a heretic, and he's separated from the church. He may not be formally separated from the church by decree from his bishop, but if he's teaching the faith, you shouldn't let your children anywhere near him, because he's not teaching the faith. He's teaching his opinion. Even Augustine said it. If you don't agree with everything in the Bible, but claim you believe in the Bible, you don't believe in the Bible, you believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, anything else?
No, this is just a case example. We're not picking on Shane Schaetzel, and he maybe one day become a great Catholic apologist, but he's not there yet, and there's a lot he needs to work on. And if you see him talking about things of the Catholic faith, then, just be aware of that.
Yep. This is Order Militaris Video TV signing off. Basel.
Basel.